So this is the video on how to do a listing. It's important to start with command. Make sure your client is in there. So let me share my screen, follow along. Starting off, we're going to go to contacts. And if your client is not currently in your database in command, you need to add them through add a contact. Put in their full name. If there's another client, like a spouse or a partner that owns the property with them, make sure you add it here and then correctly identify the relationship. Put in their primary email, their primary phone number. If you get them from a lead from where, it's good to find out where the lead came from. So make sure you source that out for your own records. Or if it was a referral from someone else, you can select that. Add to sales pipeline, add your custom tags for the contact, and then add the additional contact information, including any second emails, the address of the property, their birth dates, or company information as you have it. So we're going to go into my profile that's already created. So if you already have the client in here, all you got to do is search for them. And then while you're in here, you just want to make sure you update it so you can get yourself to 100% contact health score by getting all the information you can. We can do our opportunities in two different ways. One is directly from the contact itself, creating an opportunity. We fill it out here, or we can do it through the opportunities menu. Clicking on the opportunity, we can go to the top right and click create an opportunity. From here, we have to select the opportunity type, listing, and the client. Now, if the client had the relationship you added into it, it would automatically pop up here as co-seller. Opportunity name is always good to put in the address. Any custom tags you have, if this was like an investor or a split deal with someone, it's good to have those informations. Estimated close date is usually about 45 to 60 days away from when you're listing it. The estimated listing price is what you've done for your comparable analysis to make sure you find out what the price should be. So for this example, we're just going to put 380,000. The commission rate over here is what your side of the commission is, not total. So you'd be expected to get paid 3%. Opportunity phase is either cultivate, appointment, or active. This will allow us to put them in different stages of our pipeline, and then each stage has its own opportunity type. So we're going to start with cultivate so I can show you through the process of moving it. Once we save it, it takes us to the opportunity menu where we're going to fill in the general information. From here, you're going to change this to, from here, you're going to click the pencil icon so you can edit the details. And here you can, again, change the custom tags if you had them, selecting your time frame. When the appointment was scheduled for the listing presentation, we're just going to imagine that was today. And when the appointment date actually is, tomorrow. Agreement 1 is when they sign the listing. We're going to imagine that's tomorrow too. So we're going to future paste it. We've already got this listing signed. And we signed it for $380,000. The contract date and close date will be updated once you get a contract. Click Save. Now we go over to the property. We click the pencil icon on the property and we put in the same address. As you type, Google should find the address and you want to find it in there so that it pulls the geo information for you. Click Save. And the seller's worksheet. If you know this information, fill it out. So you've got 3% to the buyer's agent, 3% to the seller's agent, and closing costs are typically around 2%. If you know the mortgage balance, or if there's a second mortgage, prorated taxes, we don't know the proration, so we can just put in the tax amount, and any HOA dues needed. And we can click Show Net Offer on Offer Comparison. Click Save. This is our setup for the documents. We are ready to move forward. The seller profile is if they are registered with your consumer app and they will have a profile saved in there. This will be where you're going to find their consumer profile app. The documents tab is where you're actually going to put in all the documents for your transaction. And that's why it says right here, start a transaction. We're going to start it in Docusign. Make sure you log in to Docusign. If your Docusign account is not connected, you need to do so through your command settings and then connect your Docusign here. You can see in the Docusign rooms here where it drops you right into the documents area. And this is where we should start. At the top right, you're going to click the plus add button and click on Docusign Forms. If you have not connected your integration at this point, you're going to need to put in your NRDS number to integrate to an Arizona Association Realtor Forms. Now, once that's done, you'll be able to see our forms areas and all the different libraries that the forms are in. We have created some groups for commercial buyers, residential listings, listings through Armless. So if you're in the Armless MLS, and that's Sierra Vista agents, or outside of the MLS AZ of Tucson, you need to use the listing input there. New construction, resale, purchase, land, listings, and other Armless thing. The different libraries here, the Arizona Association form, is going to have most of your different forms and addendums that you're going to need to the transaction. Armless will be the same thing as the MLS, which will contain most of the documents you need for a listing. And then we have the Keller Williams specific forms that you'll find in the KW libraries. The Tucson Association libraries is going to have a couple of different forms that you can use. So make sure you understand which forms are in which libraries so that you can find them more efficiently. We're going to start with a grouping here. So this is a group of files that you'll need, and that's why they call them groups, that you're going to need for most of your listing deals. We're going to need the listing agreement, the market conditions advisory, the MLS deferral authorization form, also known as the coming soon or exempt delay form, the real estate election disclosure, also known as the ready form, the real estate seller's property disclosure statement, or the SPDS, your residential profile sheet, and the wire fraud. We're going to add those now, and then we're going to go back and add the additional forms that are not currently part of the group that you're going to need. Now that the forms have been added to our documents menu, we're going to click add again, go back into Docusign Forms, and we're going to bring in the missing forms. So starting with the Keller Williams forms, we need to add the affiliated business arrangement disclosure that we need to have with all of our files. Now, if the property you have is located near an airport, you possibly need the airport disclosure as well. Other forms to keep in mind, and we'll talk about those later, is if your home is located in an HOA, you will need the homeowners association addendum, as well as the information of what the fees are. One thing to keep in mind is if your home is located in a rural area, it may have a well water system or a septic system, also known as an on-site wastewater. Make sure you check out those two conditions because they may include two other forms that you need to add to your listing bundle: the on-site wastewater addendum and the well water addendum. So now that we have most of our forms, let's jump back in. Now that most of our forms are in the bundle, we're going to start with the listing agreement. The listing agreement is an exclusive right to sell contract between the broker and the seller. The term of the agreement is listed out here. So we recommend that you put the date starting, the day that you have your listing consultation, and get them to sign then, not the date that you're going to go live in the MLS. And the expiration is based upon how long you and the seller have determined to be under contract. There is no typical set time here. We've seen 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, up to years. So have that conversation with your seller, how long they're going to employ you to sell their home. Now, the premises information is simple. You just need to put in the address. If it has an address to like a unit number or something, we need to put it there. The assessor's number, which is also known as the parcel ID or the tax ID, also looks like a social security number, needs to go here. Your city, town, county, so Pima, the zip code, and the legal description. If you are unsure of what the legal description, the assessor's number is, you can look it up through multiple websites. If you go into the MLS, you can search the CRS data, type in the address, and here it's going to give us the property address, the subdivision, the mail carrier route, the county, what kind of property type, what the square footage of the home, the parcel ID, the township, range, and section, as well as information on the property itself. So you've got the current owner, the current owner's mailing address, and if you need some white page information, it'll take you right to it, or you can click here and go to the county's assessor's website for it, and you can search by that parcel ID. Another way of finding that information is to do a Google search for the Pima County Assessor Search. And here, you're going to go to the Pima parcel information search. Here, you can search by taxpayer's name, the street address number, or the parcel code. Since we know the street address is 7660, we're going to click on it. And it's going to bring up every house in the area that's got a 7660 as a pressure of the house. We know this one's Hoptown Avenue, so we're going to click on parcel info. This will bring you to the GIS, or Geographic Information Systems, on this parcel. So it gives us the parcel ID, the legal description, the owner's name, as well as a lot more information on the property that we're going to go over here in a little bit. So making sure our assessor's number and our legal description are correct, we're going to move on. Now, because we're not putting this house into the MLS within the next 24 hours, we need to have an exempt delay, which is that delayed authorization form we talked about earlier. So clicking that box will allow us to go. If the house has a well water, a wastewater, or solar, we're going to click other and include those as well. This is going to let your seller know what fixtures and personal property need to remain with the property as it's being sold, And this section allows us to identify what's being sold in addition to the other stuff listed on the contract. If they're planning on conveying the refrigerator, the washer, or dryer, make sure you indicate that and have those discussions with your seller. Other could be anything like a giant painting, a custom door, a light fixture, or the absence of things being left behind listed out here. Your list price goes on line 49, and this is the price that you have determined with conversation with your seller based on the previous sales in that area and what makes the most sense to the market. This is not a price that you set, but rather have your seller set. And further conversations around that are done in our daily scripting calls, so make sure you plug into those. If you're charging a retainer fee, we need to outline what that is here and indicate if it will or will not be credited against the total compensation. Line 65 for total compensation is percentage based. So we're doing a total of 6%. That's going to be split 3% and 3% with the additional. So we're going to click the box for and $295 to cover the additional compensation earned to cover administrative expenses. Now, I would advise not using the lines for the dollar amount here so that you don't get tripped up, but rather just the percentages. The next area just lets us know that the term will be in place during the dates that we have listed here. And in the event the property is sold to a buyer that looked at the property during your term, within how many days after your term will you be compensated? Typically 30, 60, 90 days. Next is escrow instructions. This box here indicates how much of the earnest money will be awarded to the broker in the event that the deal is canceled and the earnest money is awarded to the seller so that you are compensated for your time during that small transaction. This is a purely negotiated rate, if anything, and it's up to the discretion of the broker if they're going to collect it or not. Close of escrow is just the date when the deal closes. The role of the broker is to sell the property. We are representing the seller, not the buyer. The buyer is being represented by a cooperating broker. The conduct of the broker, regardless of who they represent, is to make sure that they follow all of our lines of transactional honesty and disclose in writing all the facts known to the licensee that might be material against the house. Next, we have the dual or limited representation, which just outlines that in the event that another Keller Williams Southern Arizona agent brings the buyer to this property, it would represent dual agency or limited representation. And we need to identify if the seller is okay with that or not. Make sure they understand that if they are not comfortable with that, that will cut off 400 different agents from being able to represent a buyer for buying this house. Make sure they understand that we're going to be putting up signs and marketing, and they do approve that we're going to be using those for sale signs in their house and using video and still images, as well as putting a key safe on the property. If this house currently has tenants and is being rented, I would advise not putting a key safe on the house. And if you do, make sure that the tenant signs that there's going to be access to a key safe and they're aware of that. Now, home warranty plan here is if the seller plans on giving a home warranty to the new owners, they can apply that now and get seller coverage for the term that the house is under contract for listing. And it would also set up a history of coverage for the new buyers. Fair housing information, make sure you understand indemnification. So read over the contract so you know what you're having them sign so that you can explain it as well. But the important things that we're checking out here is to make sure that the seller does not currently own or has ever owned 6 or more lots in this subdivision. Otherwise, they're going to need a public report. So no and no on this. If the premises is located out of incorporated area, you're going to need an affidavit of disclosure. If the property has domestic well water, we need to understand if it does or does not, and what those well rights are. Usually those are recorded or you have some kind of interest laid out. We need to have that information because it needs to be represented in the listing. If it has an HOA, we need to make sure we include the HOA addendum, as well as provide insurance claim history to the new buyers within 5 days of contract acceptance. The condition of the premises stays as is, and it's going to stay in the same physical condition throughout the property. So it is the seller's responsibility to make sure it's maintained and that the utilities stay on. Any lead-based paint information is provided if the house is built prior to 1978. You will need a lead-based paint disclosure. Information on FERPTA, referrals, and then it goes into talking about septic or alternative treatment systems. And again, if it has a septic or alternative treatment, you're going to need an on-site wastewater addendum to go along with it. Any additional terms and conditions are laid out here, and this would be used in the event that you're doing a special condition for compensation in the event that, like, the neighbor buys it and you're just doing a reduced amount because it's less marketing expense on your end, and it's kind of an already set up deal. This is where you'd put out those terms here. Acceptance is going to have both the seller's names or just one if it is. The information is important to have all the information to be able to contact your seller In the event that you go missing and we need to get a hold of your client, we'll have that information listed on the listing agreement so we know how to contact them. Our broker's name is Kristen Cole. Our listing company is Keller Williams of Southern Arizona. You're the listing agent. Whichever office you're out of, either the JV, KLP, or Sierra Vista offices where you're going to put your address, it's your phone number that goes here, your email that goes here, not the company's. We want your information represented here. And as a representative of Keller Williams of Southern Arizona, you are authorized to sign the listing agreement. So that is the total of our listing agreement. Now we're going to click Save and Close.
Now that we have the listing agreement done, we're going to move into the profile sheet. The residential profile sheet will be the entirety of information that you're going to need to put the MLS input together. So this is important to go through and do your research and find out all the information. Listing member is going to be your name, and next to it goes your MLS number. And if there's a co-listing, their name and their MLS number. The listing office, which is actually Keller Williams, Southern Arizona, and the listing ID for the MLS office is either 4783 for the KLP market or 478306 for the JV market. Sierra Vista's is KWSA 05. If this is a comparable listing, you're going to mark yes or no. Comparable listings are only put in as reference material and not actually being sold. Then we put the property address in here. So we got 7660, street direction. Now the address name and its street type. Tucson, Arizona, Pima County, US country, and the tax code, which we found earlier through the GIS this year. Now that we're on the GIS, I'm going to show you some other information. You're going to find a lot of information about your vehicle. You're going to find a lot of information about the property you're selling located in the geographic information system, such as the township range section, the different information on the flood types, if it is in a floodplain or not, and a lot of information set out in each of these hyperlinks. So if it's in an airport district, you can click on airports. It'll let us know if it's in an airport district or not. We can see that it's out and out, so we don't have to use an airport disclosure. Where the schools are, which schools go to: Marana Unified School District, Butterfield Elementary, Mountain View High School, the different utility companies that services it, and the zoning. So it'll let us know it's in the county, CR3. Public safety is good to know because it'll let you know where you get your fire taxation, because that lets you know if you're built into a tax-based fire protection. All of this information is here for you because you're going to need that as you're inputting your profile sheet. So the dwelling type, single family resident or manufactured, if it's existing or new construction, the tax year, how much the tax amount is. We get that information from the CRS that we looked up earlier. We can scroll down to where it says tax amount, right? Taxes, year 2020 for $2,299. Assessments, if it has any, for any large improvements in the community, most of the time it's zero. Legal description, area is the area of town it's in. The subdivision, as we know, is listed in our CRS, right here where it's got subdivision, Heritage Hills, 1 through 1, 122. Township range and section, again, we're located on the CRS. The information you get off the GIS will help you fill this information in, like your township range section, municipality and zoning, fire protection, and the flood zone. Remember, we just looked up all that information through all of these different links. So make sure you spend some time doing the research on the property so you can answer these questions. Your list price goes here. If you're using range marketing, it would be there. So like a lower and a higher. The listing date is the date that you're having them sign listing agreement. The expiration date coincides with the listing contract. Your co-op fee is the percentage that you were sharing with a cooperating broker. Remember, that was 3%. If there's a seller broker bonus, yes or no, and variable commission. If you as a listing agent are going to take a reduced commission in the event that you secure the buyer as well, it's a variable commission and it needs to be outlined here. Method of title, if it condo, co-op, or fee simple. Limited service, yes or no, is that's if you're just putting it in the MLS and you're not representing them as a listing broker, you're just putting it online, you need to have that filled out as well. Listing agreement type, exclusive right to sell. If it's distressed, being a short sale or real estate owned, REO, real estate owned is like bank owned. So we're at none. Ownership here is individual, offered by occupant or offered by investor, the dates that we can say that it's offered by. Right now, we're just gonna leave those blanks. Currently occupied by the owner. You can put the occupant's name if you know there's different names in the seller. MLS lockbox sign-in required or no sign-in required, or no lockbox sign-in required. So choose one. Put the location where the lockbox is, if there's a gate code, and the phone number to show. Please do not put your seller's contact information there. Showing instructions and directions to the property can be updated in the MLS, but it's also good to have that information here so your seller can sign off on it. Now to get the lot dimension information, we go back to the CRS, and you can clearly see it on the map here that it's 101 foot by 80 foot by 101 foot by 93 foot. Very simple to put those in there. That way you can just have it lined out. Lot acres and lot square footage is also represented in the CRS. You can scroll down and you can see lot square footage, lot acreage. So when we fill in that information, lot square footage, lot acreage, the source is from the assessors. Main house square footage, same thing from the assessor's website. We have this information up here. Square footage, again, we put that number here, and assessors. Number of garage spaces, you may not know that from the assessor's website, but hopefully you know that information about the house. If it's a ground unit, 2, 3, 4, or 5, it's got a basement, number of fireplaces, year built. Year built is important because it was built prior to 1978. You're going to need a lead-based paint disclosure. If it was built on 1978 or newer, you do not. The school information you had from the GIS before, again, back in the schools, fill those in. Property description and agent-only remarks need to be filled in here because your seller needs to sign off on. The property description is the ad copy that you're putting together that talks about the property, and the agent-only remarks is what you're going to put in that only agents can see, like please title with Catalina Title and Title Security Agency, or any other information. As we get to the different build type of the house, this is where you're going to start filling in the information. If you know the builder, great. If it's a mobile home only, this is what you're going to fill out, but we can't sell those. So if you know it's manufactured home, we'd fill out that information here in the property details. So select stories, the construction type, the style, and the roof type. You can have 1 to 3 selections. Then we move into the property internal. This is really important to bring with you when you do your listing presentation, so you can go through and actually correctly identify the different elements of the house so that you can properly market it. Each one of these items is what you're going to input into the MLS so it becomes searchable by a party looking for either a great room or a kitchen that's off the living room, something searchable. So having the correct information will allow potential buyers to find your property easier. So you can fill out a lot of this document before you go to a listing presentation, but it's always advised that you take a copy with you and fill it out there in the home with the prospective sellers. That way you get the most up-to-date information, and it gives you time to go around the house and be a little bit more critical in finding out those key details that will help you get it sold. So as we go through, you'll see a bunch of stuff that's the additional bathroom. So you've got the kitchen, dining areas, the master bathroom, additional bathroom. So like the hall bath, the guest bathroom, the laundry, the powder room. Then you have the laundry room, the extra rooms, guest facilities, interior features, and a lot of other things. But please read through this carefully and understand what you're looking for in the home. We're going to skip all the way down past all this to get into the property details so we know the neighborhood features, if you know them, or if it has an association, you're going to need that information here, which continues on to the association fees, amenities, and terms. The fees and amenities. Now, the terms are what this house is going to qualify for. Either it be cash, conventional, FHA, VA, USDA. This is where you outline it here. This is very important that you understand what type of what type of lending vehicle will qualify on this home. If the house needs a lot of work, I would not recommend putting it up for a VA deal. If the house is in good condition, in great repair, VA, FHA, understanding the guidelines there is important. That's important to understand the terms that this house will qualify for. Is if you market it as a VA only house or a VA, capable home, and the appraisal comes back with a ton of repairs, your seller's not going to be very happy. So make sure you have a good communication with your sellers about what potential loan types this home might qualify for and how they want to market the house. Next, we're moving on to what needs to be submitted with the offer. This is always good to have the dual agency consent. If it's got an HOA, a loan pre-qual, the on-site wastewater treatment, if it has a septic system, the proof of funds, if it's a cash deal, the residential contract. Now, if it's got solar, and also make sure you put that there too. This allows you to have digital signatures on your stuff. And this is where you're going to put in the additional information for your title security agency. Now, outlining here is what kind of disclosures we're going to provide in the listing as well. This is what's going to be provided to the public for selling this house. So we can put if it's got an appraisal, if we have the CC&Rs, if it's got a flood certificate, if it's in a flood plan, or we have the floor plan, any of these items in here we can add, and it just increases the validity of the property. Now you're definitely going to want to have the seller's property disclosure statement, and then any special conditions. Usually this is none. Now, if you're going to provide a home warranty, yes or no, and then who it's being provided by. The important signature areas on the profile sheet are under the seller opt-out areas. This is where you want to make sure that your seller is okay with having their property listed on the internet with no exclusions that are listed above, and have them initial here. Then it goes down to seller's name and signature, seller two's name and signature, brokerage name, listing agent, and again, you as a listing agent are authorized to sign. The profile sheet is one of the most critical forms you're going to do during your listing process. It helps you identify the critical aspects of the home, as well as the different elements that would help you market it and get it sold for the highest and best value. So take the time getting it filled out and make sure if you don't understand one of the elements or you're unsure, ask your coach. Now that we've got the listing agreement and the residential profile sheet done, it's time for us to do the new MLS entry deferral form. This is also known as the coming soon or exempt delay. The MLS entry deferral authorization form allows us to withhold the listing from the MLS for up to 30 days while currently marketing it as coming soon. Now, this also gives us the ability to hold the listing indefinitely, so it's never placed on the MLS if it's a condition that the seller wants to keep their house private. So very simple form, just the tax code goes up top. Again, the tax code we found at the Pima GIS, so 225-40-6190 in Pima County. So here are the different options you can see. Is if you choose to permanently exempt or temporarily delay your home from being shown in the MLS, the following will apply. Marketing will be limited to within the listing brokerage only. That means if your sellers decided to not let this be public listing, you're going to get fewer offers, lower purchase price, and possibly longer time to sell. The coming soon status, which most of us has come to love and enjoy, allows you to market the house as coming soon while being prepared to go live in the market. We have up to 30 days after being entered into the coming soon to go live. The listing will automatically go live after 30 days or on the date that you select listing below. So you have the seller choose, my listing can be in coming soon status from this date, and then go active as of this date. So this is used in the event that your seller has some work to do on the house still and they're not quite ready to take the professional photos, or maybe there's some staging that needs to happen, or they got to finish a repair, thin out some materials, or do some upkeep on the house just to give it the best standing chance when you actually go live. This allows you to put some marketing material together so that you can market that house as coming soon and still get as many eyes on it as possible. During this time, there are showings available if your seller is open to that, as well as at any point after they sign a listing agreement with you, the seller can accept an offer, regardless of if it's a coming soon status or not. So that being said, you want to have a communication with your sellers and let them know the different advantages of going coming soon and allowing you more time to prepare, getting your mail marketing material put together, your door knocking material, getting an open house planned and set up. That way you're not just jumping on market when you're not quite ready, and you've got some extra time to get prepared and set up. This gives you the best ability to sell their house at the highest and best value. Once you've inputted the correct dates, this will be the date that you're going to put it in as coming soon. This could be tomorrow or next week, and then the date that it's going to go live. The dates here cannot be more than 30 days apart. The second one is to temporarily delay the input of the home, meaning that you can't have a sign in the front yard, you can't have any photographs online, and it can't even put in the MLS. This might be useful as if you're having a client sign a listing agreement that may not want to sell for 5 or 6 months, but they just want to make sure they get all the paperwork taken care of now. And then lastly is the permanent exemption from the MLS, meaning it'll never be listed. This option can be used if the client is a high profile client, a judge, a celebrity, or somebody who doesn't want their house openly marketed. They just want to have you sell it to a small pool of people and not market it to the mass. So understanding the 3 different ways of handling an exempt delay, handling the deferral authorization form is important to how you're going to market that home. If you have any questions, see me. In the signature area, it's going to be seller's name, listing brokerage, listing agent, And again, you as an agent of Keller Williams Southern Arizona are authorized to sign. In any time that you're currently listed and the seller would like to lift the exemption, meaning they want to go on market right away, just send the same form to them, the one they've already signed, and have them sign again, indicating they'd like to cancel the election above and list immediately. Save and close. The next few forms are the advisory forms that are pretty simple. The first one we're going to check out is the real estate election and disclosure. This one just outlines your fiduciary responsibilities to the seller as their listing agent. The firm name, also known as a broker, will be Keller Williams Southern Arizona, acting through the licensee, which is your name. As a seller's representative, you need to make sure you check the box here for seller. And when we go to sign the document, we're going to list it for 71, save and close. The advisory forms don't need a whole lot of input from you before we go to signing, but it's important to know what they say. So take some time to read them. We just went over the real estate election and disclosure, which is showing your fiduciary responsibility to your client. But now we're going to go over the ABA, which is our affiliated business disclosure, the wire fraud advisory, and the market conditions advisory. The affiliated business arrangement disclosure is a statement that outlines that Keller Williams has a ownership stake in Catalina Title, and that we have a profit hold in there, and we have to outline the different expenses for the different title companies so they can see that we're being fair and honest. Because doing business with this company may yield a higher profit for Keller Williams Southern Arizona as an organization versus using a different title company. So you're going to need to put today's date, your client's name, and the property address. Save and close. Next, we have the wire fraud advisory, which is super important to go over with your clients because wire fraud is one of the most damaging things to your financial portfolio through a transaction because someone can steal the wire and that money can never be recovered. So go over this form with them and make sure that they understand that they're sending money to a trusted source of information, and any wiring instructions needs to be confirmed via voice or face-to-face, not through email. And lastly, the market conditions advisory. The market conditions advisory is a form that just lets your clients know that as a real estate professional, you cannot dictate or predict how the market's going to move. Everything moves in cycles, and it's important they understand that and don't hold you liable for their investments. These are the forms that you're going to get prepared for your listing presentation and send to your client prior to meeting with them so they can review them. But you're also going to print them out and bring them with you so you can get them signed at the listing presentation or set up a digital signature to be done afterwards. The next form we're going to go over is a seller's property disclosure statement, which is what we like to consider homework for our sellers. This is a form that they need to fill out all the information they know about the property so they can disclose what they know to potential buyers. Super important to advise your clients that if they do not know, they need to write the words, "I do not know," on the line. The seller's property disclosure statement, or also known as the SPDS, is a document the buyer is contractually obligated to get within 3 days of contract acceptance. It's very important to get this done before you list the home so that you have all this information relatively available to potential clients. This is your seller's homework. So make sure you fill out the address here, print out this form, and hand it to them to fill out. In no way, shape, or form is you, the agent, advising them what to put down or how to fill it out. Let them know that this is something that they need to fill out and inform them that if they do not know the answer to something, to please put, "I don't know." It's very important that our sellers understand to disclose as much as possible. Material defects and material matters of the house are legally obligated to be reported upon. Stuff like, murders or deaths in the house are not material facts. Sex offenders in the neighborhood are not material facts. These are all obligations of the buyers to do their due diligence and research the house on their own. We, as representatives to the seller, just need to advise them they need to disclose the information that they know to be a material fact against their home that they're selling. Now, if you're working with an investor that does not know anything about the house, have them fill one of these out anyways, because it's always better to protect your clients than leave them open for a lawsuit later on. And as we stated earlier, if you're selling a property that's located in the HOA, a homeowners association, you're going to need an HOA addendum. So adding that file to your packet now is just as easy as when you added the rest of them. So at the top right, click plus add, go to Docusign Forms, and you can go into the Arizona Association Forms and type in HOA with periods in between. You'll find the homeowners condominium plan community addendum and add selected. This document, for the purposes of listing, needs to be filled out on the first page only. This is where you're going to put the seller's information, today's date, And when we go to sign it, we're going to have all this information to fill in through either text boxes or printing this form and having the seller sign it in person. The next 2 pages are going to be involved when we go to accept an offer. This will be what the buyer's acknowledgments of the term is, and they will submit this with their offer as part of the negotiations. If you don't know the information on the HOA, do some research about the neighborhood. Look at other listings that have sold in that area and look at their HOA forms and see if you can get some consistencies. Ultimately, it's the best idea to reach out to the HOA directly and get the information right from their resources. It's important to have this information up front when you're going live in a listing so that you can have all of that prepared for potential buyers. The easier we make it, the higher and better value you can get when selling the house. If the property you're representing is located outside of the incorporated town, you need to make sure you include an Affidavit of Disclosure. This is a document that needs to be printed out and filled out by the seller and notarized. It's always advised to do so before you go live, so you have that information ready for potential buyers. That form is easily found if you go into your Docusign Forms, click Add, Docusign Form. Under the Arizona Association Library, and we can just type in AF and get the Affidavit of Disclosure. Add selected. Along with that, you may need to get a septic, so Arizona Association Forms, on-site wastewater, or well water, domestic well water addendum, and add those forms to your document as well. These are simple forms that just outline who's transferring the fee, buyer, seller, or split between the two, and sign and date. And again, if your property is located in a rural part of town, you may want to look and make sure that it has city water. And if it doesn't, it has well water. You're going to need a well water addendum. If it's not connected to the city sewer, you want to see if it does have a septic system or an alternative waste system. Both of those will require the use of an on-site wastewater addendum to be included in the listing packet, so you can provide that to potential buyers. Now that we have all of our forms in our bundles that we needed filled out or printed, we're going to go through and set up the signing. This, like most of our documents, is relatively simple. We're just going to select the documents we want to sign and get them set up for signatures. Now that we've got our documents bundled in here, pay no mind, your deal may not need all of these documents. We just have them in there for representative purposes. But we're going to need the residential listing agreement. So the listing agreement, the profile sheet, the MLS delayed input. Now we have the real estate election and disclosure, our market conditions advisory, our wire fraud advisory, and our affiliated business arrangement. If the property had on-site wastewater, a domestic well water, or an HOA, we would select those as well. I'm going to select HOA so I can show you guys how to fill out that form through the signing agent. Now that we've selected the forms here, our forms menu pops up, which gives us the opportunity to create an envelope. Once we create the envelope, it's going to bring all those documents that we selected together to be signed. Now that we've pulled all the documents together that we need in our envelope, we can change the envelope name to listing agreement. So it's the initial listing agreement, so we know what it is. It'll include the documents and forms that we've selected from the Documents tab, and let us select who needs to sign these documents. So click on pre-tag roles and select our seller one and our authorized signer. Add selected. You can change the subject to be more appealing and add a special message. Now you'll notice here on the left-hand side that there's queued up numbers 1 and 2. This means that your seller will sign first and then the authorized signer will sign second. If you'd like to be the agent that signs first, you can either change yours to 1 and then make the authorized and then the seller 2, so they'll sign after you. I always advise that the agent signs first. Clicking next brings you into the document editor where we can change the signature blocks or add text box as needed. The system will indicate a lot of items for you. So you can see here that on the HOA form, it automatically indexes a ton of area to be filled out by your seller about the HOA. If you have this information, you can fill that information out for them so that when you send the document over to them, it's already filled out. If you don't have it, you can tell them to please fill this information in. But this is how you're going to fill in the HOA addendum first page. And the seller's signature and date will be at the bottom. You'll notice that there's 2 different colors here. So it's kind of difficult with being the same name, but you got Daniel Caldwell, the agent, and Daniel Caldwell, the seller, in 2 different colors. The blue is represented by the seller's place to sign. So you want to make sure you go here on page 3 of the HOA addendum and remove this signature. We don't want the seller to automatically agree to anything that's here. Now, here's a really good opportunity. So currently we have no date or name represented on the ABA. So we can grab a name field for our seller and just click and drag where it says name and do the same thing for date. And down here at the bottom, you'll see signed and dated. The listing agreement will be all filled out and it'll represent the locations where the seller needs to initial on all the bottoms of the pages, as well as the different areas within the document itself. It's important to make sure that you, as the listing agent, are represented to sign on authorized signature. Market condition advisory may miss a name, so grab the name here and just put it on the line. So if you've missed a checkbox, you can add a checkbox by just clicking and dragging a checkbox over to the area where you need it and pressing spacebar to initiate the check, and then filling out the date manually by using a text box. And you can fill this in by putting the dates represented by when you want to go live or when it's coming soon. And then you'll notice how this one did not grab the authorized broker signature. So grab your signature, just click and drag, and the date. Real estate election and disclosure, same thing. You're going to have the seller's going to select these. I always make sure we select the 2 form, 41 and 42. And then your residential profile sheet is going to have some signatures for you. On that page, we talked about the exclusions and exemptions. So I like to make this conditional for them, but also remove it for them to sign. And then you're going to add your signature as an authorized party. Once you've gone over all the documents to make sure the signatures you need are in place, click send to send the documents out. You're going to get an email to sign as well as your seller. It's important not to rely on the system to put all the signatures where they should be. You as the agent need to double check to make sure that all signatures are where they're supposed to be, initials are where they're supposed to be, and anything needed is represented. That's why you have the opportunity to go through the documents and add these elements in on your own. So take the time to do that. If you have not done one of these before, you should go through the entire thing yourself and send it to yourself to sign as a client so you can see what it looks like as well. Back in the screen, you hit send. It's going to send the invite out to the client. And the cool thing is as an agent, it's going to take you right back into the envelope and it'll tell you it needs my signature. When you click on it, it'll give you the opportunity to sign and take you into the Docusign signing agent. To begin signing, you click continue and start. It'll take you to where you need to sign as an agent. And once you're done, it'll tell you done and select finish. Now that we have our listing document signed, it's time to input your listing in the MLS. So log in. From MLS as AZ, you're going to click Flex MLS, which will take you into the MLS. Click on menu, go down to the center where it says add and change. This is where you're going to add a listing. Each one of these tabs is represented by the information you've already filled out on your residential profile sheet. I told you that information would come back around. We're going to select property type, residential. If there is a co-listing agent on it, make sure you put that there. Now we're going to move into address. So just like we did in the residential profile sheet, we'll select the street, the name, and the suffix. City of Tucson, AZ, county, and the tax code. So we're going to go back to our GIS, grab the parcel ID, and go to your add listing and populate the tax tab. Click next. This is going to geotag through Google Maps of where the property's at. Use this location. Now, follow along the information that you filled in from your profile sheet. As we're going through your MLS input, it's going to be the same information that you put on your residential profile sheet. So it's important to have that information handy. I told you we're going to be using it next. As we fill in the information here, we're going to populate all of the data that we have from our residential profile sheet into our listing. For the essence of time, I'm not going to fill in all of this because you want to make sure you input all of the information that you have and each of the red boxes has set up. Now, what's important is your list price, so 380, your listing date, but we're going to click on coming soon first. That way we can put a listing date being when it's going to go live and coming soon, and when it goes live in the MLS. And the expiration, which matches our contract. Co-op fee is 3%. And answering the questions like we talked about earlier, variable commission, method of title, list the agreement type, is it limited service, is it distressed, and the ownership. And as you fill in this information, you make sure all the boxes are filled out, all the red. You can input your lockbox information, where it's located, the showing instructions, the directions, and then agent remarks, property description. Click next to go into the next area. We're just going to select those same check boxes that you filled out in the residential profile sheet. Once it's all filled out, all the boxes are checked, we're going to go up top. We're going to hit Save Incomplete Listing. The incomplete listing has been saved. This will allow us to go back to the menu, go to My Incomplete. Well, you have this one here, and we're going to edit it. Here is where you're going to upload all your photos. So click and drag your photos from your hard drive or add photos to that. This is where you upload your documents. You choose the file from your hard drive. So you download the documents you have and upload your PDFs. And then name them correctly. Add document. If there's any videos or virtual tours, you're going to add those here. And when you're ready to go, you're going to click Finish and Add Listing. It's important that you get your coming soon and go live dates correctly, because the system will automatically take it from coming soon and make it live the morning of that date. And that's when it will be open to the public for marketing and advertising. So make sure you have those dates correct, get all the information in there as much as you possibly can, and keep saving incomplete to make sure you don't lose any information you update. To go in coming soon status, you need at least one photo of the house. So make sure you put one good photo of the front of the house or something that you can use for marketing material. And then when you get your professional photos done, you can upload those later and replace the placeholder photos that you have. Once the listing is live, rock and roll, do some open houses and get those offers.